Iowa versus South Carolina. This is the game that everyone would want to see in the final, but hey, at least we're getting the matchup. In the backdrop to this game, and probably driving more hype, are the postseason awards. Now, if you're a South Carolina fan, Aliyah Boston has been robbed of the Player of the Year award. Caitlin Clark was named the Women's Basketball Naismith Trophy winner on Wednesday at a ceremony in Dallas at Reunion Tower as part of the week's Final Four festivities. Now, to be clear, Caitlin Clark had a fantastic season, and congratulations to her. Her stats for the 2023 season have been impressive, but they really have not changed much from the numbers she put up the previous year. Take a look. So her three-point percentage is up from 33 to 39%, which is damn good. But everything else, her points are essentially the same. 27 points, assist slightly down by 0.7%, and assists slightly up. But everything else is pretty much the same. Now let's look at Boston's stats over the last 2 years. It's clear that her points and rebounds are slightly down. Her scoring has decreased from 16 to 13. Her rebounds from 12 to roughly about 10. Blocks are roughly the same at 2 a game. Turnovers slightly down. Field goal percentage is up. 3-point percentage is down, but she doesn't take a lot of 3-pointers. And free throw percentage, roughly about 75%. So if you're an Iowa fan, you're saying, hey, our girl put up the numbers. She deserves the Player of the Year award. But if you're South Carolina, you would say, hey, take a listen to Bill Belichick. He'll tell you what the story is on stats.
You know how I feel about stats. Really, stats are for losers. Final scores for winners. And that's really what it's about.
Yes, Bill, you were right. It is all about winning. So let's take a look at Iowa and South Carolina's records over the last 2 seasons. Iowa's record last season was 24-8, and they finished second in the Big Ten. And then this year they finished 30-6, and again, second in the Big Ten. Now, South Carolina, last season they went 35-2 and were first in the SEC, and as well, as you're aware, they won the national championship. This year, they've sort of dropped off a bit. They're only 36-0 and first in the SEC. So because it is South Carolina and Dawn Staley, why don't we bring in a special guest, a prominent Philadelphia Eagles player? Herm, tell us why Aliyah Boston is the best player in college basketball.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game.
Now, do I think Dawn Staley's upset by this? Hell no. As well, they named her Coach of the Year, so she's getting some award. But I imagine her placing Caitlin Clark Player of the Year posters all over the Gamecock locker room just to remind her team of this slight. Not that South Carolina needs this. If you look at the odds, yes, I'm a degenerate, I'm sorry. South Carolina is minus 800 and Iowa is plus 575. For those of you that are not degenerate gamblers, that means you need to put $800 down to win $100 if you're betting on the Gamecocks. And if you put down $100 on Iowa and they win, you will get paid $575 if they win. Now, this does not mean Iowa can't win, but all those hotels in Vegas, they haven't been built on losers. Now, everybody wants this to be a great game and live up to the hype, but everybody sees what is on paper. So what do? We always do the same thing. Well, Georgetown versus Villanova. Remember how that happened? So this could happen. Could this be another Georgetown versus Villanova? I think I was listening to Howard Megdal make this comparison saying, ooh, I see a lot of similarities here. Well, if you are going to try to make this the men's Final Four of 1985, I really don't see it Georgetown versus Villanova. No, what I actually see is more like St. John's versus Georgetown. As like that game, it was not the Final Four final. It was the game to get into the championship game. In my mind, Georgetown versus St. John has a lot of similarities of Chris Mullen versus Patrick Ewing. I'm not sure if you recall, but in 1985, the Hoyas were pretty good, and they were led by Patrick Ewing. A dominant center, who was the backbone of the Hoyas' pressure defense, as he would clean up any mistakes. And when the game started, he'd make sure he just goaltend the first 5 or 6 shots just to make a statement that you weren't getting anything easy today. As well, they had a black head coach that wasn't afraid to speak his mind, which made many fans and media hate John Thompson and Georgetown. Sound familiar? At the end of the year, when it was time to give out the Naismith Award, surprisingly, it was given to Chris Mullen. Now, I couldn't find any clips on YouTube, but I remember this distinctly in my childhood with Al McGuire, and I think it was Dick Enberg. They announced it at halftime, and Al McGuire looked like he'd seen a ghost or was unbelievably surprised because they were going through the list of candidates, and McGuire was going, well, obviously, you think Patrick Ewing would get it, but there were other players, and he sort of mentioned Mullen and everything else. And then when they announced it, his eyes just bugged out, but I can't find it. I believe it was in the NBC halftime. If anybody can find it, please put it in the links. All right, I digress. Now, I couldn't help myself, so I went back to 1985 and started looking at the stats and the games. And to Mullen's credit, they actually won the Big East that year, but Patrick Ewing and the Hoyas got the revenge in the Final Four as they held Mullen to 8 shot attempts. He made 4, but that was it, and they just made his life miserable, and they won in a rout 77-59. So is Caitlin Clark looking down the barrel of an ass-kicking? I thought so. And I'm sure if you're an Iowa fan, you've already started writing your comment about what an idiot I am, which is probably true. The conventional wisdom and all the press is about how great South Carolina's defense is and how deep they are as a team and how they'll come in waves. Boston was named the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year for the second year in a row, which is a bit of a consolation prize for not winning the Best Player of the Year. As well, her teammate Brea Beal was one of the top 4 finalists for the award. Now, this is the interesting part because Beal is 6'1" and will be matching up against Clark, and she has a reputation of being the best on-ball defender in women's college basketball. You read the press clippings, and as well, you look at her long arms, very long. You're thinking, this is the girl that can give Clark some trouble. But when South Carolina went against Maryland, they were almost attacking her. I mean, obviously she was guarding Diamond Miller, and that's who they're going to go to. But Diamond Miller took her off the dribble several times and got to the basket. As well, they would get her and Boston in pick and roll at times, and Boston was hesitating on coming out and dropping too much. If they do that against Clark, that could be ugly. Because I'm a nerd, I broke down all of the clips, just straight clips of that. And I know if you highlight anybody, they're going to get beat on defense. So I understand that. But I was surprised at how often she got taken off the ball and how they struggled with dribble handoffs. So I do think Iowa's going to be able to score. But with that being said, I don't know if Iowa's going to be able to stop South Carolina, as their defense has improved since last season, but it's still up and down. One thing they focused on after being eliminated by Creighton in the last tournament was improving their defensive rebounding, which will be very important against South Carolina as they destroy teams going to the board and getting second, third, and fourth attempts on missed shots. During this tournament, Iowa has been going zone at times, usually at the end of the first half. They did it against Southeast Louisiana in the first game, and as well, they did it against Louisville for a little bit as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens with rebounding, because I could see them going to that and saying, we're going to collapse on Boston, but at the same time, I could see them giving up a hell of a lot of rebounds is South Carolina will just attack the boards. Most teams have been hesitant to challenge Iowa on the boards as they are so deadly in transition, as Clark is able to pull up for threes as well as give passes for easy layups. However, I don't think South Carolina will pull up on the boards. I think they will attack, as this will be another interesting aspect of this game, because I think Staley's going to say, we do what we do. We're just going to come out and man you up and just crush you and kick your ass all over the place.
We wrestle with, whether to play these bigs, whether to step up, whether to play back. And, Coach Long said, let's do what we do. Let's do what we do. And what we do is we pressure. Okay? And it didn't impact them a whole lot in the first and second quarter. Well, come the third and the fourth quarter. That's when you saw it. You saw it happening. We had more oomph than they had. Okay, we made more big plays than they made. And a lot of times that's what they do to other teams. Okay? But it's our time, y'all. It's our time.
We're not going to do anything silly like boxing one or any special defenses. I mean, they might throw the occasional double at her, but I think they're just going to play straight up and say, here we go. We've got the best player in the country on the best team in the country, and we're going to take you out. The fear for Iowa is, are they setting up Caitlin Clark in Iowa for a David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon moment? If you don't remember, Hakeem had a slightly, well, he didn't even have a down year, but they gave the award to Robinson, and then they had the misfortune for Robinson to meet in the playoffs. They gave Robinson the award prior to the game, and as Robert Horry said, you could see steam coming out of Hakeem as he got that award, and he went out and just totally schooled David Robinson and showed everybody who the real best player in the NBA was. Is this going to be the case for Aliyah Boston and the Gamecocks? Will they just come out focused and wanting to make a statement? It'll be fun to watch. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. As always, please leave me your poison. Whatever your comments are fine. Just don't use bad language. All right, thank you for watching. Good night.